bringing news that matters to you. You're watching the Bahamas Tonight Northern Edition.
Welcome back. A mother's concern about the impact of video games on young people has highlighted the need for a greater awareness about the issue. Tonight, a local psychiatrist takes a closer look, that is, at the effects of video games. According to research, 97% of teens in the United States play video games. A 2010 survey by the Kaiser Family Foundation found that young people between the ages of 8 and 18 devote 7.5 hours a day to entertainment media. The industry brings in $12 billion annually and continues to grow. Here in the Bahamas, video games have also become a popular source of entertainment for young people. Clinical Director of Psychiatry at the Grand Bahama Health Services, Dr. Jane Turnquest, says parents should monitor this activity closely.
If the games the person plays have a social moral basis, those individuals become more concerned about their community and more concerned about others, more empathic. However, many of the games focus on aggression. And the focus of the game is that the more you win the battles, the more you advance. But because it's aggression that they're exposed to, there is a correlation that these young people then become more aggressive in their life outside of the games.
Research has also found that children who played more violent video games during the beginning of the school year showed more aggression than other children later in the school year. Dr. Turnquest talks about the effects associated with these games.
These individuals then become very, let's say, connected with the games, very motivated to play the games, so there's some social isolation. They don't have relationships other than the person they're playing the games with. Their time management becomes distorted, so they don't care for themselves sometimes. They don't go to classes, they don't go to schools, they don't involve in any other activities. So there's an imbalance. And this is a part of the concern as well.
There are concerns that video games are addictive, but Dr. Turnquest says this issue is still under review.
Video games addiction is not a part of the diagnostic categories. It has been looked at, but the new diagnostic manual that was released in May of last year did not include it. It included internet gambling, but not video game addiction. But it does seem to be that there's this compulsion to use, and it's being looked at in this research is, are we dealing with an addiction?
But Dr. Turnquest notes that there is a positive side to playing video games.
The individuals who play the games, we know they develop significant manual dexterity in terms of their hands, and also we know that their internet abilities are significant.
According to medical reports, video games can cause seizures, a condition called photosensitive epilepsy. The seizures are brought on by exposure to flashing lights and contrasting visual patterns. While the government has delayed its referendum on gender equality, all systems are set to be go for another referendum designed exclusively with educators in mind. Joan Davis-Roll reports.
The Bahamas Union of Teachers were preparing to stage a referendum of its own, one that will help to chart the course of this organization. Area Vice President of the BUT on Grand Bahama, Quentin LaRota, says the union, which is 3,500 members strong, will participate in this democratic process come next month.
The BUT has a constitution, and like any constitution, when it's amended, it has to go to referendum. This AGM passed 24 amendments that our constitution will approve. And the process is, afterwards it goes to referendum where each member gets an opportunity to vote to see if it becomes a part of our Constitution. Our Constitution has a very high threshold for amendment. For an amendment to become a part of our Constitution, it has to receive 2/3 of majority vote from the membership who voted. And so we're looking at the referendum date being the 1st of October, where every teacher would get the opportunity to either say yes or no to the 24 proposed amendments.
LaRota states that members will be asked to vote yes or no to 24 questions that will appear on the ballot.
What we are looking at is making some changes in the area of delineation of power between the President and the Secretary General. We are amending the parts that deal with the candidates and the expectations. We're making them more realistic. And we also, just some simple grammatical corrections as well. Being a union of teachers, we want to make sure that our document is quite clear and grammatically correct on its intent and its statements.
The union executive notes that in preparation for the upcoming referendum, officials have been traveling to the various islands as a part of a major educational campaign.
What we're trying to do now, though, is educate our members as best we can so that they would be, when they vote, their conscience is clear and it's sound. And so, and we have went to several of the islands and held meeting with the membership, informing them about the referendum, its implications, the pros and cons, and so that they could entirely vote their conscience. And the reception has been a tremendous one.
Joan Davis Roll, ZNS Network News.
As the government continues with its mandate to address the high crime rate in the country, the Universal Household of Faith God Chasers Ministry is seeking to give the nation's youth positive alternatives to the many social ills they're facing in today's society. The ministry is hosting a conference through September 28th at the church in Hawksville under the theme, The Breakout, No Looking Back. Youth Pastor Glenn Russell and Assistant Youth Pastor Ashkel Smith say they are excited about helping to develop the spiritual aspect of young people.
Sometimes we try to counsel young people and we try to, put them in classes, but what I realize there's a spiritual aspect of it. And we have to also target the spiritual aspect of it, because most of the time when you guys target this physical aspect of it, the spiritual aspect is still not being touched. So this conference is designed to deal with the spiritual aspect of it, and then once you get them to a level spiritually, then you can put them in a place where they could be trained and then talked to physically.
This year, we're just not targeting, as our bishop would say, we're not just targeting for people to become Christians, but we want to make disciples. And we're saying no looking back. We're meaning you have broken out now. We don't want you to stay there. Let's go. Follow us as we follow Christ.
His name has become a household one in the recording industry in the genre of gospel. Tonight, we take a look at his legacy and future plans for his career. His career in the music industry started out some 50 years ago when he assisted with establishing the popular gospel group, the Cooling Waters.
The group started in 1964. Yes, that's the Cooling Waters. It was founded by my brother, the late Reverend Douglas Williams. I and him, we used to go from church to church singing. And he said to me, you know what? Rather than we be from place to place competing, let us form a group.
Bishop Washington Williams, who's also known as Lil Wash, became the lead singer and wrote many of the songs on the 14 albums the group released over the years. He says his love for singing was never about making money, but rather helping others.
We have built school in Andros, the Central Andros High School. We sang for that from the very beginning until it was finished. The Bethlehem Baptist Church, we sang for that from when they break ground until they finish it. Numerous churches throughout the Bahamas, all about charity, helping people that are sick, homes burned down, people got burned out. We helped them.
And it was that love and passion for the art that took Williams and the Cooling Waters to islands around the Bahamas and throughout the world. He says he developed relationships and even performed with some of the top gospel artists in the U.S.
The group that has inspired me a lot was the Mighty Clouds of Joy, Joe Lagon, and I met him and we became friends. Close friends, Joe Lagon, and then we had the sensational Nightingales out of Durham, North Carolina, Joe Wallace and Thompson and them, and we became personal friends. And then we had several concerts with Shirley Caesar.
But the senior pastor at New Canaan Zion Baptist Church says what was most rewarding was a letter he received from a lady from West Germany who visited the Bahamas and took a copy of one of the Cooling Waters albums back to her country.
She wrote back and saying, well, what a blessing it was and how much people were, was touched by the songs.
Williams suffered a heart attack 3 years ago, and doctors had given up on him. But he lived to tell his story. He's still singing and is preparing to release his first solo CD later this year. Was blind, but now I see. Well, I may not be Shirley Caesar, but I certainly tried.
But what was that, though?
I certainly tried. What about you?
Listen.
What about you?
I sing on a full stomach, and I sing from the diaphragm.
And that's our Northern Edition tonight on behalf of the entire team.
Stay with your day job, Ricardo.
I'm Sabrina Brown. Thank you for joining us. Good night.